Welcome back to another video. Bradford City of yesterday, drawn 1-1 against Harrogate Town. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments down below. Like the video if you do, subscribe if you're new as well. But do let me know your thoughts because a lot of different opinions and it's very varied and a lot of valid points from the game and the last few games and the start of the season. So do let me know your thoughts. I've seen a lot of individual criticism towards certain players and the manager and Whoop and Sparks, and it all comes back to the same thing for me, and it's all down to one man and that's the ownership, because we won badly from top to bottom. There's no direction, there's no ambition, and there's nothing there from Mr. Whoop to want to take this football club forward, and we'll end up having more days and more weekends like this because we always come back to it. We've just come off the back of 3 draws and all 3 of them have not been good enough performances, and especially Mansfield and Grimsby. If I go back to the Grimsby game especially, I thought Morecambe took the chances and were very clinical on the counter-attack, and there were no real energy and no real heart from the performance that I took from watching the game. Whereas Grimsby, it felt very much a managerial decision to have us parking on the edge of our box with playing a 10-0-0, very much to play for a point and maybe play on the counter, but there were no attacking output because there were no idea to how to counter-attack and there were no outball. Against Harrogate Town today, I found it a much better watch personally, and I could see much more of a progression and a plan and a strategy to how we were going to go about to win that game. We knew that crossing the ball into a box wasn't going to be effective or work because we have Andy Cook and Oliver out injured. So we had to be more intricate. We had to overload the wide areas to bring it back into the middle. And unfortunately, every time we worked it down the left side, a Foker was clinging to that side. I haven't looked at his heat map, but I know what it'll be. It'll be just outside the edge of a box, not quite hugging the left-hand side, but it'll be in and around that left side because he's not a striker. He can't anticipate where the ball's going to go, and if we put a cross into him, he isn't going to be able to win the header because he's not a natural striker, and I don't think he's got that aerial ability or physical presence to be able to deal with the Harrogate centre-backs. We did launch it up to him a couple of times, and that's gave Smode a lot of criticism because he was shouting at the players when we did try and play with a quicker tempo. I'd say that's too quick, playing long balls towards a Foker because he ain't going to hold it up or he ain't going to win the header, and that's what we saw. Anthony O'Connor or McDonald, that their centre-backs would just win the header and then they'd play from there. So that wasn't going to be effective. We had to play the game plan, but we did. We had 68% possession. The only problem that we had was 9 shots free on target. We just didn't get enough shots off or create enough chances to be able to say we deserved to win that game. But in terms of the strategy towards the performance, I can get on board with it. I know a lot of fans don't like the possession-based football. I don't mind it as long as it's in the opposition half, and 8 times out of 10 it was. I don't like playing out from the back in your own box where it puts pressure on you. You've seen that this season with mistakes against Colchester, and we've brought a lot of goals on under the use area by playing like that. But against Harrogate, they don't play a high press, so we had a lot more time on the ball, and we saw that. They made it really difficult for us playing that deep line, and you've seen that in games against teams have played against Harrogate, and they've been low-scoring games because they find it very hard to break them down, and we did. If we had a Cook or an Oliver, I'm only going to say it this last time, I think it would have been a very different game. Hughes said it and I 100% agree with him for once. And I'm not being an happy clapper. You can watch the Grimsby one, or you might have watched the Grimsby one, or the Morecambe match reaction, or the Crawley one where I called a team of strangers. I've called them out for performances that I couldn't get on board with. I found boring, and I found nothing to buy into and no plan towards the performance to go and win the game. Mansfield as well. However, today we had a clear plan of how we're going to win the game. We just couldn't create enough chances to be able to do that. We tried to play intricate passes around the penalty box. Again, we just didn't quite have that key to unlock the door. I did think that we had all the posts but no letterbox. When you look at all the players that came on, especially when we made those 3 changes, we had a few brief chances. I remember Odra had a good chance that he created by being patient with a defender, did a few lollipops, got it on his left foot, which he has to do because in League Two, you know, you're not going to take a foot on you're not going to have to take a shot on your other weak foot, because that's why they're in League Two. They're not going to be both-footed. Got it on his left, and it was a really poor shot. He should have been hitting the target and probably scoring from the chance that he created for himself. But Richards blazed one over the bar, but again, you know, they're the only real chances we had, and that's not good enough. That's where the criticism's been laid at not being able to create the chances with all the ball we had. But I do think with a week's training, playing like that again consistently, and that's the problem I have with not being able to believe in what's going on, because we keep playing these different styles of play, and it's not to adapt to the opposition, it's to adapt to the fans, to suit the fans, and it's to adapt to different results. It's not to react to the opposition, to adapt to how they're going to play, to set up a game plan. It's not to adapt to the players to get the best out of them. It's to adapt to the results, to try and win, keep the fans on side. That's one thing I would praise Hughes with as well. I think it's unfair to then, you know, be blaming the 4-2-3-1 after blaming the fire at the back, after then blaming Hughes again to be stubborn. He's changed the system, he's changed the formation. We all wanted 5 at the back gone. We all wanted to keep certain players in the team and get rid of some. Derbyshire went, McDonald went, so we ended up with one of McDonald and Smallwood, which complemented as well. Gilead stayed in the team, although the problem was with Smallwood and Gilead in midfield, you lack creativity, and that's what we saw all last season. So that's clear to see. We've still missed Pattison, we've still missed Cook, we've still missed Oliver. Chapman had give us something different, and obviously there's a couple of others who are out as well. So we really miss players. There's questions on the recruitment and why haven't we brought in a focal point striker who can hold the ball up. I think that we still could. You know, you still got some target man type of strikers who are very clinical and very proven in the AFL, who are still available, which I think with a if we wanted to go and do that, we probably could, unless Stephen Wood wouldn't want to invest that money on big wages, because you look at a few of them and they would want big wages, those type of players. But would Hughes want to risk a year contract to someone who might not get game time ahead of Cook and Oliver? And that's the risk you take, and I think that's why we won't go in the market for a striker, because he'll say, well, I've got Derbyshire, I've got Smith, I've got Oliver and I've got Cook. They're all different strikers. The unfortunate case is 3 of them have been injured and 1 of them should be in a wheelchair. That's just the unfortunate case of it, and we've had to play a focus. So I think a week's training session, Mark Hughes working with a Foco and Smith to get them to anticipate where the ball's going to be, maybe get a few of the wingers, you know, getting the ball into the box and getting players into the box to create better chances to be able to put crosses in, because that was a big problem. Momentum's the biggest thing in football. Fans have lost patience with Hughes. The fans have turned. I did a Twitter poll in the week. That was 55% Mark Hughes out of with 150 odd votes or something like that. If I did it now, it'd definitely be over 60. I think it'd be more like 70, 80, which means he's lost the fans if it's that big of a margin, and that's concerning. Especially when you look at when Hughes came in, the biggest side of Hughes was he won the fans over from previous regimes, and now he's losing the fans. He's going to have to do a lot to win that over. My then different angle of that is he'll easily win them over if we can get scoring, and I think we just need to be patient. I think I can see it working if we keep playing like that when Cook and Oliver come in. If it doesn't work then, in the next month of Cook and Oliver in the side and competing, then I'd be concerned and I'd be looking at Hughes out. At the minute, I don't think he's quite got the tools available with Pattison, Cook and Oliver out, who are 3 influential players. I think it's very hard to be creating chances when you haven't got a focal point. But that's enough of that. I'm getting to a player rating. Harry Lewis, for me, gets a 3. I think this is a pretty easy rating compared to some others. Didn't have a lot to do. Goal, I don't think it was his fault, although I hadn't seen it back. I've only seen it on the first time, but yeah, I don't think he had a lot to do. Distribution were good. Matty Platty were very good on when he didn't have the ball. When he's on the ball in a back 2, you see his problem with the distribution of the ball, and it's clear to see to everyone, because you've got to be passing the ball quicker and you've got to be a lot more crisper at your passing. Sometimes it would just behind Stubbs when he were doing that sideways pass, so it were a bit short for Stubbs, and that's the problem with Platt, with his passing. It isn't crisp and accurate. So that's the big problem. However, I'm not going to mark him down for that, because he made a few really good tackles, especially the one on Armstrong, which he could have got wrong. Last-ditch tackle, he could have come through the back of Armstrong. It's a penalty. He come from the side and got the ball, so it was a great tackle. And there were a couple of others as well. So I'm not going to mark it down for the distribution. I'm going to give him a 3. Stubbs, I thought, if you're going to blame Platt for distribution, you can as well for Stubbs, because they're both centre-backs who were passing the ball very slowly and not with tempo, and that was the biggest problem. We had no tempo when we were passing the ball out, and he was taking a lot more touches than Platt. Not as many passes as I've seen, but not a lot more touches, because he was a lot more patient with his forward passing. But his defending again, I thought was superb. I don't really think there were a time where anyone got past him in a one-on-one situation. They were balling behind and he caught him back with pace, so I thought he was fantastic defensively, so I'd give him a 4. Lewis Richards gets a 2 for me. I think it was his worst performance at City, but it's nowhere near as bad as the Liam Rideout performance. I still think he's got a lot of developing to do if he wants to progress in his career. I think at the moment he's just fine. He's a big improvement on last year. He's an okay player. If he wants to keep progressing for himself, then he's got a lot of development still to do. But in a minute, I think he's a top-end League 2 player at this moment in time. Decent going forward, although his crossing really let him down. Although we didn't put a lot of crosses in, when he did put one in, it struggled to meet the first man, which was concerning. Defensively, he was okay. So I'd give him a 2, but just grade him down on his attacking threat, because I think he was left lacking in that today. But I'm not too concerned about him. Brad Halliday gets a 4. Brilliant defensively again, up against a very tricky winger, and going forward, he spoke in his match interview, post-match interview as well, talking about how playing in the right back role instead of a wing back role suits him much better and is more comfortable in that role. And it's not the first time I've heard a player coming out and criticising the back 5 and saying how much they're comfortable playing in the back 4, which is no surprise, and we could all see that. The only man who couldn't was Mark Hughes, but I'll give him the credit of changing it up. But yeah, Halliday, I thought it were very good again today, overlapped well, got into good areas, and defensively again very solid. Smallwood, this is the controversial one. I'm going to give him a 3. It wasn't a bad performance from Smallwood, it wasn't a good performance from Smallwood, although I was very satisfied with it. I didn't see a problem with it. I don't know why he's a scapegoat. I suppose it's easy when he's a captain, and he shows his frustration sometimes, or his appreciation of others, when some fans don't get that. I'm never a fan of booing a player off or cheering a player off. That's just my opinion, although I can understand why fans do it. But with Smallwood, I didn't see why there was a need to do it. I didn't think he had a bad game. I just thought it was like a scapegoat. And then we went and conceded because we were way too open in midfield. So I thought we were doing a pretty good job at marking Armstrong, and it was in a very good defensive midfield position. Although it left Gilead a lot of work to do in these areas, he was covering this basis off really well, and I wanted Small to be doing that a lot more. So I liked the positions he was taking up in that defensive midfield role. It won't get noticed, and that's what you want. On the ball, he took the ball to back 3. I like your defensive midfielder to come and sit in the back 3 and to keep passing the ball and to spread it. Although Smallwood doesn't play forward as much as everyone would like, I mean, what do you want him to do? He's not Andre Pirlo, is he? He's in League 2 for a reason. Gilead, for me, gets a 2 because there's a lot of emphasis on that number 8/10 yesterday, to be giving a threat in the final third. And when you see Patterson come into a team, he gives that. Gilead doesn't. He's not that type of a player. But he deserved to be in the team. He just got caught on the ball a bit in that final third, and he had a lot of energy to do, because like I say, with Small's position, I like that area that he was taking up. It left Gilead a lot of area to cover because of how deep Smallwood was. But I like the area we win. That's where you want your midfielder to be in, but Gilead had a lot to do there. But yeah, he was sort of at fault for the goal as well, slipping up and not really tracking back. So yeah, I would mark him down and give him a 2. Clark Odra, I thought he had an okay game. I'd give him a 3. That shot that I talked about earlier, should have put that away. but I think it was very hard for the creative players. Although you do need them to be creating the chances, I get that. It was very hard for them to, without that focal striker who they could play off or they could put a cross into. And that's the last time I'm going to mention it, otherwise I'm going to frustrate some by constantly mention it, but and it'll be seen as an excuse. But that was the reason why we didn't win today, because there was no player to play off, and that was the problem. And yeah, you can mark them down because they couldn't create a clear-cut chance themselves. There was no real chance in the game, moment in the game where Harrogate opened up. There was no opportunity to really have a shot where it opened up. There were only a couple. I mean, like Richards, that opened up for him. He had the shot. Odwar, but Wilson, that were a decent strike when it just opened up for him. You can create the opportunity and angle for it to open up, but when a team's so rigid and so stubborn, to not let someone open you up, it's going to be always tough. Jimmy Walker gets a 4. Yes, he got the goal, which bumps it up from a 3, clearly. Good flick on from the free kick from Halliday. But his overall performance, I did quite like. He was a threat to the Harrogate defenders, the only one who looked like he was a bit of a threat. I've criticised Walker a lot this season, so I'll be balanced, and I thought he was very good. And like I say, he was scaring those defenders, running at them, taking the ball off the midfield and having a go, creating a couple of half chances, getting into the penalty box, which we didn't get a lot in the game. He was the one who was, the driving force of the midfield. So really liked his performance. Hopefully he can kick on with it. But that's the problem I have with Jamie Walker. He's just so inconsistent. Bobby Poynton gets a 3. There was very little options for him apart from those short, intricate passes, and that was a big problem throughout the game for us. But yeah, he didn't create enough, he didn't do enough, so it's got to be an average for me. And Defoe gets a 2. I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I don't think he's a bad player. I just think that he's been used to playing as that left winger player. He's not a striker. He can't anticipate where the ball's going to go. He anticipates where he needs to be to get the ball. So he drifts out on the left side, which left us with no one in the penalty box, and a very comfortable day for McDonald and O'Connor at the back for Harrogate. So a frustrating game, I think I'd say. I don't think it was a bad performance. I don't think it was a good performance. I just think that in different circumstances we might have come away with a win with certain players back, but they weren't. So you've got to be patient, I think. Mark Hughes did come out, and I didn't really like his comments saying, we need to calm down, because I don't think that's the right way to talk to fans. We need to relax. But there's an element of that. I think there's no need for a big meltdown yet. I'm still undecided on Hughes. I won't let that cover over the cracks. I still look at the performance against Morecambe, the Grimsby one. Do I believe this squad will go up? Not at this moment in time. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you disagree with me, which I think a lot will, let me know why. I want to know what your thoughts are on Smallwood. Is he a scapegoat? If you cheered him, I want to know why. I don't have a problem if you did, but I just want to know what he did so wrong to deserve that, because there's a lot of players in the past who deserve it a lot more than that performance, but it's still not a good watch going to City. There's still fans who are thinking about not going in a few weeks as well. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you're new. Have a good one.